Alright, this is my Romanian AK-47. Trying to get a video, sorry about the shakiness of the cell phone, to show the play in this carrier for the forum. As you can see, it's got quite a bit of play in it. And what's happening, let me get a shot of the rails in here. Thing looks good. What's happening, and here's a picture of the ejector where I had to weld it up and retip it, and you can see some marks here from heat treating, reheat treating after. If you look at the front trunnion, right at this area right here, the bolt was striking it. And when you push the carrier down, because the bolt's not in the rifle right now, as you would push the carrier down, it would have plenty of clearance. As the rounds were pushing up on the bolt, it was pushing all this play up. It was allowing the bolt to rise and strike this trunnion, or however this is pronounced. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Now, I'd also tried raising this right rail so that the bolt would rotate back to the left, and the problem is there is a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch gap between this bottom rail and the bolt with it pushed all the way up. So in no way can I push this up enough to actually affect the bolt. But as you can see, there is a ton of play here. Just rotational, not necessarily axial play. But the only solution that I can come up with is to step these rails down, to pull the bolt carrier down, or, and here's a shot, I'm going to do a quick shot of the underside of the bolt carrier. This has been cleaned up slightly, some of the milling marks, but nothing to change the tolerance. And also, it's been cleaned up at this point, but right on the edge of this cocking surface, right from where this flat goes back to this angle, it was peening that edge. And the best I can figure out, so I can get it don't focus in enough. The best that I can figure out from that edge is when it was striking that trunnion, it was putting load. It was putting load on that part. Now, another area I was going to let y'all see. This is what the rails look like. Once again, this is a Droid cell phone camera. It's looking blurry on my screen, so I don't know how it's going to look when we get it on the computer. And the carrier will be blued eventually. And let me get a good shot at these rails. If you can see where I've barely put a slight angle to the front of this trunnion, just in case that rides up. Sometimes it would catch on that edge when I first bought the rifle. And I put a little bit of a bevel, just in case it rode up higher, it would push it down into the battery. As you can see, I mean, everything looks into spec. Now, something else I had to do. If you look at this trigger group, it's common on some of the Tapco and the early NDS3s that the disconnector would not disconnect. It would let go of the rifle. So this area right here, as you can see, I filed a step into it. I've also on the underside of the disconnector to file a step to make so when the hammer is pushed down by the bolt carrier, it's grabbed by this disconnector. And also, after thinking about the problem, this ejector also very, very low in the bolt slot. It's very low. So I think the problem, and I've had these issues. The ejector is why the rifle came apart this time. It was having a disconnect problem when I first bought the rifle. Well, since these two have been fixed, this has been bent up slightly. As I was taking it apart this time after the stovepipe issues. So if we look at these two issues, if the bolt carrier was pushed down, another, I'd say 20 thousandths, 30 thousandths at the most, the stock G2 trigger assembly would have worked without this shelf, because that shelf's not more than 10 thousandths deep. Not a lot, and I might have another 10 thousandths out of here, and it's well cocked, no problem. And this ejector, so if the bolt carrier was pushed down, it would have reset the stock G2 trigger without modification. The ejector would have been higher in the bolt slot, not causing the stovepipe issues, although it was slightly short, and it would not be hitting this front true-in, or however that's pronounced. So, the options I have thought about, and we've discussed, is either somehow building at the bottom of this rail to hold the bolt carrier further down, or building up with a weld this area right here to tighten it up to bring the bolt carrier down. I'm worried about the heat treat with welding. Another area right here. So I'm worried about the heat treat, and that's fairly difficult to weld and machine. You want to nail the bolt for one thing, and I worry about the wear. This receiver is already hardened. It's a fully hardened receiver. So let's see if we can kind of get some heads together and figure this thing out.